All right, so today for segment one, we're going to be talking about BECMI. That's right, Shadzar. We're saying BECMI on this channel because that's how we roll here. BECMI D&D. But before we do this, let's get a little introduction from DM Bluddworth. A quick little something about yourself and what you've got going on here on Drive Through RPG.
All right. Well, welcome again, everybody. Thanks for having me. And once again, this is just as of October 29th. October 29th, I finally got my first publications on to Drive Through RPG. The first one that you see here, Whiskey Creek Runs Red, is a Gangbusters BX. Gangbusters BX is a basic version of TSR's Gangbusters. It was written by Mark A. Hunt, and great game. He's currently working on an expanded version of it, or possibly an expert version. I think he's going to follow the same BECMI line. At least I hope he does. So that's a really quick adventure that I ran at 4 different cons this past year, which is one of the benefits, if you can call it that, of COVID, was that all of the cons went virtual, and so it was a lot easier to actually attend far more cons than I certainly would have attended. So I was planning on going to one, and I actually ended up doing 4 or 5 cons this past year. So that is a con-tested adventure. Got really great feedback from the players during the time, and some of the reviews have been really good as well. So I'm happy about that. And then the second title, which was actually the first one that they approved, is The Dawning of Thule, and that is for the Mythic Fantasy RPG. Very short, 8-page adventure. It's in booklet form. So it's actually closer to about 6 pages of actual adventure.
This be good for like a one shot at a convention?
Yes, this is a very good one shot at a convention, and it's also an introduction. So it really kind of introduces the setting and just the theme and the flavor of the actual setting of the game and the game mechanics as well. There's a lot of lore built into the game mechanics, and this was a really good way of introducing players to that. The one thing about this, which might throw a lot of people like, wow, I've never seen that before, is that the player characters start off as 8-year-olds. All right, and so it really ties into the Hollow Evening High Festival. And it was really coincidental that this is when I wrote this adventure and actually published it, 2 days before Halloween. So I think it's a nice twist that players might not be familiar with in having a game start them out as 8-year-old children with very, very limited skills. They basically just have their attributes, and they have to manage their risk level as they're going through this. If they try to think, well, I'm a first level character, it's going to end up like a Dungeon Crawl Classics funnel. If, on the other hand, they just think of, I'm just going to be a full participant in this festival, then they should survive and actually learn quite a bit about the setting as well.
One of the things I've noticed recently, especially with Tales from the Loop, and there's another one out there that's teenagers. The whole teenager motif seems to be kind of taken off this last year or two. So fits right in with that. You might be hitting the stride running.
Yeah.
All right, so we got those, and those are on Drive Through RPG. You can search for r.cell space games space publishing, because Drive Through RPG gets weird on its search engine. Or you can look for The Dawning of, you said you pronounce it Thule? Thule?
Yes.
Or Whiskey Creek Runs Red. All right, let's, and then now, boom. This is YouTube channel, Unscripted and Unchained, RPG reviews. We got those subscribers. I want to see your 1,000 subscribers. Up there is 1.03K. Bam! He's got his monetization. Look at that. Probably shouldn't be showing all this. Oh, whatever. It's a tool I use to make sure people like him can't hold me down. Even look at that. Yeah. He actually beat us here. Dang it. We got to put out better videos, Heathen Dog. Anyway, but you can kind of see what by the way, I watch most of the videos on the Max Liao account. So don't take this as I don't watch any of your videos. Although I have not watched any recently. Got Divinity Original Sin. I know you said that you were playing with somebody on that. Look at that, My Farag, which is what you were just talking about for your games. All types of first edition Dungeons and Dragons stuff. How are these half watch? I don't ever half watch anything. Whatever. I was actually following this RPG a day thing. I don't know. I just don't get into motifs like that. But I was watching yours and a couple other people's, and I thought it was a neat concept to get people thinking about RPG games. But supporting the RPG community, though, so you can't complain about that. Got some Pillars of Eternity, which I broke that game, so I cry. Tune, which I had to watch. I think we talked about that on the channel, Heathen Dog, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Was it this video? I think it was.
I don't know if it was that specific video, but we did talk about it.
So anyway, look at this. I'm scrolling down, and there's still just a bunch of stuff here. So go follow Unscripted and Unchained RPG reviews. Do you have a personal link yet, or is it? Oh yeah, you do. It's here. Let's just put it in chat. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put it in chat. Then people can go and follow, subscribe, and do all the other good things that they're supposed to do. There you go. That went to both sides of the house. All right. Any quick blurb you want to say about your channel?
Pretty much the channel's about a little over 3 years old. And most of that growth has been from the last 2 years. And I try to mix it up as much as possible. So there's a broad view of genre that you're going to see. And I'm also, as you can tell, by multi-platform. So I will put up computer RPG games. I do a lot of tabletop RPG games. And if there's, I don't currently have any consoles. The last console I actually played was PS2. So I'm kind of
PC
aging
Master
myself.
Race.
And so I'm kind of, kind of aging myself there. But I mean, all kinds of games that I enjoy playing. So
anybody who's watching this right now, you better not jump and go watch Cecil because he's live. You watch us.
Yeah, so I noticed on your channel that you've been talking quite a bit about Conan Exiles, and that's another one of my favorite games, but I haven't touched it in quite some time. I think it was just before they released Mounts, and that was probably the last time that I played it was just then. So that was probably like 6 months ago, maybe even a little. I
just started playing it.
So yeah, that game is really evolving, very quickly. So that's awesome stuff.
I'm finding it to be a really fun game. I didn't get it when it first came out just because I didn't understand the premise at first, and I thought it was more of just of a PvP type game, and I'm too old for that crap now. But no, I've been playing with a few people on our streams and so forth, having lots of fun. I've kind of got the server locked down right now where I don't want experienced people to come in and ruin it all for us because I know there's just so much to explore in the game. But once I get to the point where it's like, okay, I've explored enough, or I know enough where I don't care, then we're going to open it up to our subs and so forth to join us as well. All right. Now we're going to move on to the true meat. Oh, yeah. We have, you know what? When you got a guest on, you got to show off his stuff. Boom. You zoom in on this bad boy right here and rotate this stuff around. Go over there. You go over there. Go full screen there. Boom. Okay, so today, Heathen Dog and I wouldn't say are ignorant. I'm going to say we're ignorant. We're a little ignorant about basic Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, we've got a little bit of experience with it, but it's not our forte. Would you say that, Heathen Dog? You're muted. You're yelling at me, but you're muted.
I was doing a lot of button clicks. I didn't want to set you off. But yeah, I grew up on AD&D and second AD&D, but I have played basic Dungeons and Dragons maybe half a dozen times. That's about it.
That's more than me.
And of course, I was always a human because I'm a humanist, and demi-humans are less than human. So why be something less than good? I don't understand. I don't know why anyone would do it, but whatever. We'll talk about when they get to it. That's fine.
So for me, I've played even less than that. I think I've played it maybe I know for sure one time. I'm not sure if I played it 2 or 3 times, but because of that, I have a couple of books. They're ratty. I think they're used from other people, so we don't know much about it. And I did peruse this book or this set before this stream, but that's it. Just a perusal. I didn't really dig deeply into it. But there's one thing that we want to talk about for sure, and that's why this is probably the best place to start with regard to playing D&D. Somebody say, I want to play this D&D stuff that everybody's talking about. Well, start with BECMI. No, you don't. Well, this one you do.
No. They're all talking about 5th edition. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No,
Fair enough. But so
you do, but you don't.
So DM Bluddworth is here to tell us why we should start with BECMI. What does it stand for? Basic, Expert, Companion. I forget. Immortals.
Master and Immortals.
Master and Immortals. Dungeons and Dragons, and why that is the best place to start before you get your feet wet into the real world of tabletop role playing. So take it away.
Okay. And this is not solely my argument. Actually, I've been listening to a lot of people saying that going back to this first box set of and this particular one, so the expanded Dungeons and Dragons, all edited by Frank Metzner. And this series, I think, really introduces players and DMs as well into just role playing in general. So if you're really unfamiliar with tabletop role playing games, then this is the ideal. Again, in my opinion, but shared by many, this is the ideal box set to go with. All right, and you can still manage to get at least the books. I mean, if you're looking for the box and the dice and the crayon, that's going to be hard to get. Yeah, have fun and be prepared to spend about $100 on it. But you can get the loose books for about $20, and you can also get the PDF of these on drive-through through Wizards of the Coast for probably about $9 or so. I would rather spend twice as much to actually have the physical in my hand than just a printed copy, because printer ink is more expensive than printers. so to actually print up 200 some odd pages, you're probably looking at $5 worth of ink already. So I prefer just to have the physical copies of it. What I really like about what this does, and as I was perusing through it again, there are 2 books in this set. So there's the player's book, and then there's the Dungeon Master's handbook as well. And the player's book is going to give the player all of the information that they actually need in order to roll up a character. Then what I like about this, that's really unique is, and if you're going to keep on scrolling through it, you're going to come to a solo adventure. So in the rule book, the player now can run through a solo adventure and learn the system as they're doing it on their own, which I think is a real brilliant idea to do. And I haven't seen it in other game systems where they actually give a starting adventure for just the player to run themselves, so they can learn some of the simple systems.
Actually, I've seen it one other time.
Where was that?
First edition Shadowrun, the Stouffer Shack adventure is meant for between 1 and 3 players.
But is it for the reader who reads the book?
The main book, and it's set up specifically to touch every single base lightly.
Oh, cool.
Every single basic rule will be rolled or enforced or brought up in this adventure, and that's why it was made.
One of the things I noticed while reading through this is that a lot of games like to put in little example combats of this is what's role playing, or little sessions maybe in a sidebar or something. This is literally an adventure that says roll the dice. Yeah. If this happens, your character dies. I actually read through this. Take off 1 hit point every time you hit the goblin. Take off 2 hit points every time it hits you. That kind of thing. So and you are absolutely right. It starts very simplistic because separate this as the book goes deeper in. They separate it from, okay, very few rules, just hit or not hit, to, okay, now you got a couple attributes, to now you're a character. Pop, pop, pop. Let's make it a little bit more in depth each time. And look at this for the people watching on the stream. This isn't just a one-page thing. This is, and you can always tell Elmore art. Like, I really love his art, by the way. But
the solo adventure starts on page 13.
This one, this is the first one right here. It's on page 4 or 3. Yeah, page 3 is the first one.
Oh, your first adventure. Yeah,
Yep.
This is just what's going to happen, right?
This is the most basic thing. And then, then it goes through it. It's broken in like 3 or 4 different parts. And then you've got the ending here. What page is this one? 6. Because this one even tells you about the different endings you can have depending on what happens. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it actually ends on page 8 where they say winning. And then they go into the actual, the character sheet and attributes and such. So at that point, you start to generate a character. So really what it's doing is it's introducing you to what is a role-playing game. All right. And it doesn't forget the G. All right. It's a game. All right. That's something that I think is kind of missed with more modern RPGs, is that they focus more on the role-playing part and forget that there's a game involved here. And games require that there's a chance for, chances for success and failure. And that's, there in all games, there has to be a winner and a loser. All right. And, with this particular one, yes, it is geared towards the players being the winners, unless they're, really silly about what their choices are. And then they're more likely to lose. But for the most part, as you were saying earlier, it is that constant buildup that goes on where it's like, well, here's a little bit of, knowledge, test it out, work on this here. Now you're ready for the next stage. And it does exactly the same thing for the Dungeon Master as well. So when you go to the Dungeon Master's book, which I'll hold up here, and I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here with you.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk that's in the Player's Handbook before we get there?
Yeah, sure. All right. So other things in the Player's Handbook that are, standouts in comparison to today is that, yes, it does have races that are classes, especially your demi-human races are also classes. And, elves and dwarves elves, dwarves, and halflings are the character classes as well. And they take a longer time to level up because of their innate abilities that they have, which is considered to be an advantage. And so they take a much longer path in order to go up in levels. Secondly, and I know if you laugh at that, really only the halfling is not truly advantaged, very much. But the dwarves and elves, especially elves, if there's any slight at old school Dungeons and Dragons or advanced Dungeons and Dragons, is elves as a race were really, really advantaged, in a number of ways. It's like, so I remember the big push back then amongst players that I was involved with was no, just don't roll an elf because they're powerful. Roll an elf because you really want to play one, or stick to the other classes. So elves are powerful, but it takes a long time to level them up, and that's where the balance came from. So I think an elf takes something like, if I'm remembering correctly, almost like 3,000 experience points just to get to second level.
Trying to find it now.
Yeah.
Schlo. In comparison, let's check out the magic user, which is on page 37.
That's 32. Okay, so
There we go.
Let's see.
yeah, magic user. Skipping a lot of stuff. So the magic user XP for the first 3 levels, because remember, this book only goes through the first 3 levels.
Right.
That is it.
Yes.
2,500.
And
Yeah.
5,000.
And
5,000.
an elf is 4,000 to get to second level.
That is a huge detriment.
Yeah, it took a long time. So I recently ran a campaign using BECMI, and it lasted about 12 weeks. So it really took us through, that first that quarantine phase, basically, that many of us had gone through, and carried us well into the summertime. And it took that 12 weeks, and we were playing weekly. So about 30 hours of gameplay was logged in to get the character group up to about third level. All right, and that included the demi-humans that were in the group, so that they had gotten there as well. The other thing I did during my campaign, just to really utilize this, was I had 7 players, and each one was playing a different class or race combination. So I had 4 humans, a fighter, a cleric, a thief, and a magic user. I had a dwarf, an elf, and a halfling. So
halfling.
yeah, I wanted to make sure that because many of these people had never played Dungeons and Dragons before. They played, 5th edition or some of the other later editions,
That was
but
good.
they had not
I like
played.
that.
Yeah, they had not played this before, and so it was a really nice eye opener for them, because some said, yeah, you know what, I'm not crazy about the system so much. It's restrictive or it's too basic. Others said, wow, I'm just relieved that I don't have to think about all of these other things. It's just very simple, and I could just get into it and we could just play and not have to worry about, well, am I using this am I using this background trait to its fullest extent, or
Right. And I want to comment on that, because
Yeah.
I do have some experience with that, but I also want to say what Uther put in here. You brought it for a second. Elves live many more years than humans, so why would they gain levels as fast as humans? True. I mean, that's part of the lore type reason for why demi-humans, a lot of demi-humans level up slower, especially elves, because they live so long. They're not in a hurry. They don't feel urgency like lower lived races do. So if you want to play an elf, if you want to play a dwarf, because dwarves live what 200, 250, something like that.
Second edition is around 250. Yeah.
500 plus, depending on what system you're playing.
Yeah.
So if you want to live, if you want to play one of these longer lived races, you have to also role play that piece of them, that their background is important to the experience. So an elf would not charge into battle, even if it's an elf fighter, for crying out loud. They're talking about AD&D in second edition. Even if it's an elf warrior of some type, they are going to take their time, think it through, all possibilities. They're not wasting time. This is their deal. This is their mindset, their thought process. There's always more time to get it right. So they're going to level up slower. The other part, of course, is that they get more inherent abilities. Like, a lot of times most elves, and actually most systems, are resistant or immune to illusions, charms, and whatever. Dwarves have resistances to poisons and diseases and stuff like that. Infravision, ultravision, night vision, dark vision, gnome vision, tree vision, whatever. All the vision. They get all of these bonuses inherently that humans.
Well, it's because they're made out of Fae, in a lot of lore. They're part of the Fae in a lot of lore. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to, when you're done, I've got a comment to make as well.
And then what I want to get back to Bluddworth's thing. Now that I have completely forgotten what it was. Bluddworth, hope you can help me. What I stopped you, the point you were making.
I was making the point. Now I forgot. I forgot too.
Well, you guys are thinking that. I'd like to comment to Mr. Talum here.
Yeah.
Got to engage our chat. This is something that this bugs me. It's never keen on PCs leveling up at different times. It was usually a reasonable jump in power. I have a problem with that as a Dungeons and Dragons player. I can't speak to other games on that. I mean, I've played a lot of other games, but specifically Dungeons and Dragons. I know Heathen Dog probably has. I said no and probably. That's great. And I'm sure DM Bluddworth's been around enough to see this. The thief in basic D&D or in first or second edition AD&D, I always wanted the thief to be higher level. Like, there's a reason that the thief gains experience so quickly. Number one, sucker's always getting poisoned. He's always failing his. I mean, if you look at those percentages, he's always failing the pick locks and so forth. So, again, poisoned. I want that jackass to be higher. Plus, he has 6 hit points. Yeah, sure, he gets his backstab multiplier, but that happens. That's very situational and so forth. So that's just an example of where I don't care that the thief levels faster or gains experience points based on gold pieces, where the wizard only gains it on what spells he's casting that day or whatever. So, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, generally the thief does not become even moderately useful in basic and advanced Dungeons and Dragons until he gets closer to mid-level. I mean, that's just the way he's built. But to make up for that, they made him advance more quickly than anybody else. Which is, to me, I would want him to advance a little faster, maybe a little bit faster in the beginning, right?
Was it 1250 XP?
Yeah. The first 5 levels should be pretty damn quick because picking locks, sneaking around, that's a super OJT thing, right? I mean, that's on the job training. I mean, you learn that through experience. You screw up enough, you figure out what not to do, and you should advance much faster. Whereas, a magic user, there's a lot of studying involved. That's tedious work. That takes time. You can't just wing a spell and expect it to work out. But you could just try something new on picking a lock or try something new on hiding in a shadow, and shit might work. Hey,
like,
great.
Thank God.
There you go. I finally pulled one out of my butt. That's great.
Yeah, and actually my experience, I always liked playing thieves. I like playing thieves when they were called thieves. So that's kind of my slight against rogue. I never liked that class name for him anyway. I think it was kind of a cop out. But you're right. I mean, thieves did take up a lot of risk playing a thief because not only were you always disarming traps and potentially getting poisoned, but in all the parties that I ever played in, the thief was usually the point man. The thief was usually, out there checking for traps and everything ahead of everybody else. So, and in some of the more basic versions of D&D, the thief only had 4 hit points. They only had a D4 for hit dice. So, so they were as weak as magic users, and not as far as absorption of damage, but many of their skills too, like picking pockets or opening locks and those kinds of things, were fairly low at fairly low at first level. Takes a long time for those to ramp up.
In a couple of games where I did play a thief, and this was like first, second, and third level. And they were like, hey, why don't you go and check for traps or search this room or do all this stuff? And went, no, let the fighter do it. He's like, what are you talking about? You have a chance to actually find the trap before it goes off.
He has a chance to survive it.
Yeah, you know what that chance is against the fighter? I call it statistically irrelevant. I got like an 8% chance to find a trap before I step on it, but I have a 100% chance of dying from it. And whereas the fighter isn't going to die from this trap. He's going to find it just as well as I will, only he won't die. So either I go in front and you carry my body all the way there and back to wherever the fuck we're going, or the fighter goes in front, we bandage his leg a couple of times and we move on. People still didn't like it. I mean, it was pure logic, but they didn't like it.
Well, I mean, you're saying right here, so I scrolled down to the thief. 4-sided die is used to determine a thief's points. So, I mean, but he still levels over twice as fast as the wizard. Yeah. Again, I don't care. I think, so when ready for the drinking game, I don't care if it's Dungeons & Dragons or Palladium. Oh, wait, that's when Heathen Dog says Palladium. Those are two games I'm very familiar with that have different, depending on your RCCs, OCCs, or character class, and so forth, that have different experience
tables. Yes.
I've never found that it matters as long as you're playing your class. Where it ends up mattering is for the lazy game master who wants to milestone everybody. Milestones don't belong in early editions of D&D. Some people ask me if I use milestones or if I use strict XP. Well, I use a combination of both. And what I mean by that is I give XP based on milestones. So you don't just gain a level for, tripping a trap. You don't just gain a level for killing a monster. I don't believe in any of that. I will do the XP, but if you do it, you hit that milestone and get that XP. Hopefully that makes sense to people. What I don't do, and DM Bluddworth, get you back in here, I don't know how you feel about this, but I don't give out XP for gold. Even if I do like early editions of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons where it's built into the system, I like, oh, you got this treasure worth 5,000 gold, that's 5,000 XP. It's like, nah, no.
I never did that either.
Yeah, no. I never did it with like magic items if they actually found a magic item, because the gold value of magic items was so high that it would really throw off the experience leveling portion. But to a certain extent, I did give XP for gold because you'll sit at those levels for a long time unless you do, at least to a certain extent, that. But I also included milestones as far as, having completed portions of stories, parts of the adventure, so good stop points, and then granting XP for, having completed that. How well did you complete it? Or did you completely fail that portion? So I always gave experience points in little packets along the way as well.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
We all did that as well. I mean, when I made my own campaigns, I would give out small amounts of experience at the end of every game session, depending on how you role played. Yes. Did you accomplish this objective as well or better than I imagined you did? You get a little more XP. Did you role play, saving the tavern wench from the, pimp smacker extraordinaire?
What?
And not start a bar brawl?
Yeah.
Okay, a little XP for that. Did you role play your character in some kind of tense or emotional situation as you have imagined him or her? Yeah, sure. Yeah, great. Little XP. Yeah. And then the milestones you're talking about. A lot of these I found in the earlier modules were built in. I mean, if you get like a third of the way through the module, and then it will give you milestone experience points. Everyone gets this experience points for completing this portion of the trek or this whatever. And then it gives a parenthetical saying if they did it surprisingly well, give them plus this. If they did it like by the skin of their teeth or made stupid decisions, give them minus that to this total. And so I would incorporate that in my games as well. So yeah, I mean, in the early levels, sometimes people will gain a level in the middle of an adventure. I mean, that happens, right? But how do they handle that in basic D&D? Does it give guidance in this book about how to handle someone gaining a level in the middle of adventure where they logically cannot train or anything like that to explain the increase in abilities or maybe an extra spell or whatever?
The book actually doesn't, but the book empowers the DM to make those decisions. And that's the other thing. I mean, that's a real old school RPG thing. Is that the DM
That's why I
is
give that
the
example because this is an old
Yeah.
school RPG thing. So
it's the the DM is and there's a reason why it's dungeon master, or game master. It's not a manager, which I've started to see that term thrown around now. But it's really up to them. The way that I've done it is they might gain the physical aspects of
Right.
the training, but not the skill aspects, because they have to train. It's like if you had a magic user, well, now they can suddenly use a second level magic spell, let's say, but they don't have any available with them at the time, unless they happen to have a scroll they've been hanging on to or something. So, and then that takes, that's not just, all right, well, now I can cast this, from or learn this into my spell book. That's going to take a while.
Mhm.
That's something that they have to wait until they get back to, their town or wherever their base of operations are, and then spend time actually learning that new spell or learning how to use those things. So I've always liked to have low-level player characters have some kind of an NPC mentor that they have to go to unlock those new abilities.
Doesn't this game
or
say to do that until like level 7? I thought I read that in here. Until level 7, or maybe that was just for the wizard, but it said until like level 7, the character needs to go back to a non-adventuring, like you said, mentor.
Yes. So it's built in the sense that you should certainly have that kind of idea going along, but a DM can do whatever they want with that.
I've seen and done it both ways.
Yeah.
What I've done is when a lower level character will advance a level inside of an adventure where they realistically cannot have a week or two to do the logical training to gain that power. I've seen and done it both ways. I usually take a middle ground. Like, for example, the easy thing is for a spellcasting class, like a wizard or a cleric. If they are not graduating to a new level of spell, just getting an extra spell per day, well, that's easy. That's easy. That's you give that. Okay, that's just
Right.
a gimme. You can memorize. Your brain got a little bigger through experience. Good job. You can hold one more spell. Bully on you. And I have denied them the next level, which they are not qualified for, next level of spell, because I want them to have time to do it. But also, I've had players proactively, knowing they're going to advance in the beginning of that adventure, before they start off on that adventure, they will say, "Hey, I am taking a couple extra books with me. This is the weight that goes in my backpack. I'm taking spell components for 3rd level spells. I can't use them yet, but I've been studying these past weeks and I'm almost at a breakthrough." Now, if they come at me like that, I'd be like, "All right, that's pretty smart. All right, that was pretty good. I'm gonna give it to you." So and then I'll have him do that. But for physical abilities, like a fighter gaining some kind of new trait or stuff like that is purely based on physicality, they could easily say that they have been practicing for this and now they have perfected it.
Right.
And that's fine too. A DM should be able to be convinced to a point. Especially if a character comes to you before the game starts, or that particular game day starts, or that particular adventure starts, and this person is thinking of the future. I like those kinds of players. I'm going to reward that kind of behavior.
Well, it's very similar in thought process to like how I compare 1st edition to 5th edition, in the fact of, in 5th edition, everybody goes, okay, I roll my investigation and my perception. What did I find? Versus, okay, I am going to go look around the corner using my mirror attached by a sticky substance to the stick to look. What do I see down the hallway? And what I mean by that is somebody's proactively trying to engage in the game, not just use the numbers and the skill system there. And I'm with you 100% on that one. I can't say I've done exactly what you've done, but yeah, if somebody's got a good reason and can say, hey, this is what I've been doing, this is how I express it with my character. Me, I like to have some role playing in there. Yeah, I'm I'm in the middle of the story game versus just tactical game type thing. But I don't see a problem because that player is being proactive and using the game as the character, in concert.
Right. And a lot of people, I mean, none of this is specifically written in any book I've seen, but for a game like basic Dungeons and Dragons, where there aren't a lot of rules, right? I mean, there are rules, but they're not super algorithmic, nasty. That's what I forgot. Anyway, they're not super algorithmic. You don't need cheat sheets and everything. You got it. There's a lot of leeway. There's a lot of leeway for the player and the dungeon master. For example, like what you were saying, one of your big problems with 5th edition is that they'll just walk in a room, roll a die, and you have to give them everything that die roll says they get, which is lame. What we want at bare minimum is them to go in the room, say, "Hey, I'm going to feel around the walls. I'm going to knock on, parts of these wood paneling to see if they're hollow. I'm looking for a secret door," and then they roll. Great, they roll. But if you get some inventive stuff, like there was this one player. This was in a second edition AD&D game, where before they went into the castle, he got a bunch of green sticks. What I mean by green sticks is he took sticks off of living trees and put them in his pocket. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I don't know what he was doing with them. I didn't know. But when he got to a point where he had to look for a secret door, he would dip these green sticks in lamp fluid, light them up so they would smoke, and he would use that to try and find the seam for the secret door. And I was like, you know what? +2 to your roll.
Yeah,
that was a good one. I love giving bonuses like that. And with a game like basic Dungeons and Dragons, where not all of the rules are explicitly said, where the game master has so much leeway, you can do stuff like that and no one can bitch. No one can say anything. They go, yeah, it was a good idea. It's fine. That was good.
Rule 0.
Like that.
And we'll talk about that later because rule 0.
Yeah.
All right.
Players are not characters, so that was a good one to stop on.
Yeah, I noticed you stopped on this particular screen, and I know why. And it actually matches your RPG gate thing as well.
Probably not coincidental.
But this goes back to how the basic set is teaching you how to be a role player. And how to play the game itself, not just this particular game, but any RPG you can take from what you learn from this book and carry it over to others. And that's why, I also argue that this is probably the best introductory RPG for brand new players to the hobby, as compared to, possibly others. And again, you can argue one way or the other for other systems, but I just prefer this one because of things like what you're showing right now.
Yes, this right here introduces you to what I consider a core concept of proper gaming.
Mm-hmm.
You are a character in a story. You're not you. You would not do the things that your character would not do the things that you would do. Your character would do the things that your character would do. Think of it that way. You have to make all of your decisions through your player's eyes, through your player's lens.
Yep.
If you're not doing that, you're not playing the game. You're just trying to play an avatar of yourself, and that's not escapism. That's not entertainment. That's
when I read this yesterday, I love the fact where it basically said, don't metagame. Because there's always that argument versus metagaming and not metagaming. I mean, I've even seen videos from some of the more popular 5th edition YouTubers who are like, oh, there's nothing wrong with metagaming and so forth. That's because you're using weird rule system. The old days are like, no, don't metagame. Know the difference. Know what your character. No, try to think like your character. Absolutely. And to piggyback on what DM Bluddworth was saying a moment ago, I don't know of another system. There might be out there. Like I will tell you that I think the Year Zero engine, for example, is an easier system to learn, to just learn off the cuff. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. And when I read through this book yesterday, and to be fair, I did not read it word for word. I took about an hour to skim through it, read some of the stuff in there, get an idea what was in here. I was like, how did I miss this book my entire life? I mean, I know how. I mean, it's because I had some exposure to it. BattleTech became my main game. When I came back to Dungeons and Dragons, second edition was already out, and that's really where I stuck with it and so forth, right as second edition was released, as a matter of fact. So that's where I ended up kind of staying. But I went through this as like, holy crap, I'm rethinking how I'm writing up my RPG simply because of this book right here. Because I'm like, wait a second, because this really does start. Let's keep it simple, stupid. All right, you good with that? Let's throw in a little bit more now. How are you handling it? Everything good? Everything's good? Awesome. Okay, let's throw a little bit more in. Now you're ready to start playing a first level character. But don't worry, we're only going to bring you to level 3. You've got plenty of time. If you use the old adage of three adventures per level, or 3 to 5 adventures per level, you've got a good 15, 9 to 15 adventures underneath you before you need to get another book out. Have some fun, play the game. We'll start throwing more stuff at you later. And I did peruse through those other books as well. And some of the stuff that you're like, well, why isn't that a rule in the basic book? Well, because it's in the expanded book or it's in the companion book. Some things that we're just used to from playing Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, you don't find until your 14th level in this game because it's trying to bring it to you step by step. And I absolutely love that. I don't know where this box set's been all my life. It's just not in my repertoire. Sorry for kind of taking a lot there, but I really wanted to put that out there, that I agree with you 100% on that. And I mean, I don't know. What do you want to add to what I said there if we want to move on? But I really had to piggyback on that. As somebody who had read this before.
I want to go to the playing with a group. Okay. That's page 53. Especially, I want to read up on where is it? The character alignment.
What page?
That one specifically is on 55.
55. Okay. Dividing treasure. Okay, character alignment. I mean, there are only 3 alignments in basic.
I know, right? The 3 basic ways of life guide the acts of both player characters and monsters. Each way of life is called an alignment. The 3 alignments are law, chaos, and neutrality. Each alignment has a language that includes hand signals. This is awesome. I was like, in second edition, it was just thieves' cant. That's basically the only language that
first edition AD&D still had the alignment languages.
Yeah.
Player characters always know how to speak their alignment language in addition to any others they may know. If a monster is able to speak, it will also be able to use its alignment language. That's fun. I was like, that makes it really easy. You no longer have to have, like, I speak kobold, I speak troll, do you speak chaos? Yeah. Hey, there you go. You can talk to all these boys. That's great. That's good stuff. But what I want to go on is the alignment give guidelines for characters to live by. And this is cool. Guideline. I have had so many people come to me and said, that is not exactly what a lawful evil person would do. That is not. No, they're guidelines. You got to, you always aim to stay in your lane. Some people go out of their lane. Good people do bad things. Bad people do good things sometimes. But generally, you stay in your lane. And basic D&D makes the lanes pretty big and gives you leeway to skirt the edges every now and again if it's appropriate to the game, the moment, the character, whatever. I like it. And I wish that alignment stayed this level of definition. I'm not sure I agree with the alignment languages. I like the differing languages personally, but the generalness of the alignment gives the player a lot more options. Like the paladin, who if he doesn't kill this unarmed evil guy, 10 peasants, 3 of them children, will definitely die. Well, if he is playing lawful good, he cannot do that. As a matter of fact, by the rules, for a lot, if you don't have a specific god, by the rules, he may even lose his powers and have to atone. Mm-hmm. But in a real situation, that's a no-brainer. You kill this one guy that you know is bad to save 10 people, 3 of them kids who are peasants, who are innocents. No brainer.
Yeah.
10 out of 10 times, I'd do it. And this wide lane gives you the ability to do that. And I like it.
Yep.
It really frees the player to do a whole lot more with their character without feeling constricted by it.
Right. To piggyback off your point, you can sometimes have more flexibility by having fewer choices. Here you have fewer choices of alignment, all right, but they're far broader than the 9-step alignment system that you normally see. And so it's simple, but it still allows for more flexibility than and so that it points out that it's not as restrictive as a lot of people looking at it 30, 40 years later, saying, well, in comparison to games now, it's too restrictive. No, there's a more freedom built into this system than I think it's given credit for.
Right. With this 3 alignment system, I can imagine a lot of players that I've seen played with or game mastered that would not have found themselves in their own personal hell of catch-22.
Mm-hmm. Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to interrupt for just a second here, just to remind everybody that to give us a like, subscribe. We're going to post DM Bluddworth's link to his channel again in a moment. I don't have it up. I do, but I don't want to get off the screen. We'll get you to him to make sure you subscribe to his channel as well. Got to do all the obligatory YouTube stuff. Share the video. Tell people we're streaming. Go get them in here to watch DM Bluddworth school us on basic Dungeons and Dragons. All right. That was the obligatory stuff. Always got to do that. So where are we playing in a group alignment? Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I don't like the alignment language. I think it's silly. But I also think that for a game like basic D&D, it's a, how do you want to say, it's a game mechanic, again, not role playing, not story based. It's a game mechanic that allows, like you mentioned, there are 3 orcs out there. Maybe you don't have to crush them in the face. Oh wait, this is basic D&D. Yes, you do. But there's but you get what I'm saying. Like there are other options other than drawing the sword and just slicing it and dicing everybody. And now you have that out where you can't say, well, we can't talk to them. Well, there's 6 people in the party, just using averages. There's 2 of each alignment. I think somebody can go talk to, that or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Right.
More options.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can still get experience points for defeating the situation without immediately having to kill anything you can't talk to.
Right. Hey, I would like just to look at adventuring rules. One of the things that caught my attention on this, first of all, it kind of tells new players how to use some of this equipment. I learned this through trial and error, through playing with people and having them tell me, bam, just some of the most simple things right there. Mm-hmm. And then, because I got a question for DM Bluddworth with this one. A turn, everybody knows what a turn is, right?
Yep.
Okay, what's around, Heathen Dog? And don't read the book. What's around to you?
In combat, 6 seconds. Out of combat, 1 minute. Or
I don't know.
10 seconds. 6 or 10 seconds. Out of combat, 1 minute.
Yeah.
10 seconds or 1 minute, which always gets everybody like, what? But right here, there you go. 10 seconds. 10 minutes, 10 seconds. A turn. Bam. Let's move on. Can we get rid of that 1 minute debate round? Who the hell put 1 minute for a round? Okay, I'm done with that. But but right there, pop up. This makes perfect sense.
Conceptually, and this is something that I picked up from Mifrog as well. Is that when you're looking at a combat round, you're not just swinging that sword and hitting your target or moving or something. You're doing 20 other things at the same time. So like when you're actually hitting somebody for 6 points of damage, yes, a bulk of that damage came from hitting them with your sword, but some of it came from an elbow that you threw during that thing. You're scrubbing along, you're struggling, you're fighting, you're you're fighting tooth and nail during that. 6 seconds is a lot of time. All right. If you've ever been in a fight, all right.
It's an eternity.
6 seconds is a lot of time. And you're not just doing one strike during a 6 second time period. You're not just getting hit once, if you're not lucky, you're not just getting hit once during that 6 second point of time.
I mean, look at MMA fighting, at like how they burst in and then unless they go into ground and pound,
So it's a long. There's a lot of action taking place.
Yes.
During that span of time. So whether you want to say it's 6
if you want to simplify it, like if there's just two people in combat, just two, before the first swing is thrown, before the first axe come down or sword gets thrust, there is an immeasurable amount of feinting, footwork, movement, circling. Yeah. And if you increase that to a whole battlefield, you have to keep your head on a swivel. You have to keep your 3 and 9 o'clock covered, or else you're going to get flanked. That's not even counting the guy in front of you, which is also gaining the most of your attention. Right. So there's a whole lot of just moving around before the first swing is thrown, and maybe the first swing is dodged, but you twist your sword and you come back on the side. That's when you hit him. Yeah. It was considered the game mechanics consider that a single roll. But during that 10 seconds, that's what it took to land that one hit.
Yes.
So combat, if you help your players think of combat as cinematic. What I use is the movie Old Boy. The original and the remake, I think both did this, but they had a fight which was a continuous minute and a half shot of a single fight, and you can see how everyone tires out very, very quickly, and how if you broke that into rounds, that whole minute and a half would have been like 6 rounds of combat, because only these 6 things actually happened, but during that entire time, people were fainting, people moving, people were jumping, people were sizing each other up, they were grabbing things off the ground, they were throwing things away in the air. All that stuff was happening in between the die rolls. That's why a single hit takes 10 seconds. You're not winding up for 10 seconds, powering up your attack. No, you're not doing anything dumb like that. Exactly. You're not gathering spirit ball energy or some other 4-episode DBZ nonsense. You are doing actual cinematic and in some cases real world fighting things like feinting and blocking or dodging or all that stuff. All that's happening in 10 seconds. All of that encompasses your actions in the round.
Right.
Have to notch an arrow or load a bolt into a crossbow. Yes, that even an expert loading a bolt into a crossbow and getting it ready can take up to 2 or 3 seconds in and of itself. So, stuff like that is happening during your combat round.
Yep.
One of the things I think we would have noticed differently. Remember when we did Astonishing Swordsman, Sorcerers of Hyperborea, and we couldn't figure out movement rate?
Yep.
If we would have known basic Dungeons and Dragons, we probably would have figured it out right away. 40 feet per round.
There you go.
Yeah. So it looks like that game actually took more out of basic than it did out of advanced for a lot of it. But this has a very similar style to the older school stuff. Well, it is the old school stuff. Why am I saying it that way? Where it's 120 yards outside and 120 feet inside. But it doesn't say that there because I'm actually skipping ahead to another book. I read that. But it's one of the things to consider. You don't have to think about it here because the first 3 I just gave the answer. The first 3 levels, they pretty much just have you going on dungeon crawls.
Yes. Yeah. And that was one of the points I wanted to make, when we get to the Dungeon Master's, book itself, because they're 2 separate books, one for player, one for Dungeon Master. And that's the key point of the part of the learning curve for a new Dungeon Master that this system does as well. You are just
Okay.
focusing for the first 3 levels. I think you're about to get there anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just want to see if there's anything important that we missed. It doesn't seem like it's.
No. There's. I mean, that first book is going to take a brand new to tabletop hobby player and teach them all the rules that they really need to know to bring their character from first level to third level. And regardless of the character class that they're playing or the race that they're playing for the demi-human classes, they need to learn the same rules across the board, but they're going to have a different experience going from 1 to 3. So to get back at the, one of the questions that the poster had said, or, on the comment section, well, they really don't like when a player, when one character levels up faster than the others. If they're working as a group, it's not going to make that much of a difference. If the elf is still level 1 and everybody else is level 3, that level 1 elf is still a fighter magic user. So remember that they're really a multi-class character, and they're treated as such. So if you want to make a fair comparison, you look at first edition Dungeons and Dragons, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and you'll see that they really are on the same level as a multi-class character.
Yep.
And you don't really notice as you're playing it that big difference in power between a third level fighter and a second level or potentially still a first level elf. That elf is still very, very close to that same power level, even being 1 or 2 levels behind. So, so that's another thing that I really enjoy about Basic is that it does manage that power differential between one character class and another. That balance, if you will, is certainly there in that first book.
One of the things I wanted to mention, I completely forgot to mention this, but just real quickly, the cleric doesn't get her first spell until level 2.
Yes,
and
which is tough to do because I played it and I was like, wow. I mean, I really do feel useless in this.
Basically, a first level cleric, instead of calling him a cleric, you just call him a preacher. That's exactly all he is. He's a preacher.
Yeah, because you're not quite a fighter. At least you're not as weak as a magic user or a thief.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're just like a lesser fighter for that first level.
But a lot of the old basic stuff, whether it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons or basic D&D, just a lot of the older school games in general say, look, let's look at the wizard as an example. You have 4 hit points, and in this game you get 2 spells. 2. One was probably read magic, so 1 spell. That's it. That's what you're starting the game with.
Yeah.
4 hit points at max and 2 spells. Have fun with that, buddy. But but the point is to level up. I mean, we've talked about multiple times on the show where it's like, sure, the fighter starts off better with you. Look, I get to wear armor, I get to have a better weapon, I have more hit points. But you protect that wizard, and by level 5, 6, 7, the fighter's up front going, okay, stuff's coming, go kill it. I'm just going to hold it off you, and everybody's working with this synergy.
Yeah, so I like to think of it as the fighters and the paladins and whatever, they're making an investment in the future with these wizards and clerics. They are investing. And by 5th level, those investments are going to pay dividends.
Yeah. So what are some key takeaways? Okay. What are some key takeaways here from what we want to look at in the Dungeon Master Guide here?
Well, I think that the biggest takeaway here is that, and one of you just mentioned it, was that you're I think it was you, Max. You mentioned it, that the takeaway is that you're just doing dungeon crawls for levels 1 through 3, and that is basically something you find in the Dungeon Master's Guide here, is that near the end, you'll see that in the Dungeon Master section, it just talks about creating dungeons. and when I was going through this, and then I looked at the expert one, it's different in the expert one where it says creating campaigns, and that's a very different and purposeful directive of what this is doing. So creating dungeons is on page 46. If you're
is it that far down? Okay.
Yeah, it's near the end.
Okay.
And so it's important that it's near the end because it really does set the tone for where the dungeon master was supposed to be in their using this book. Is you're really only supposed to be creating dungeons at this point, and just using this as a tool to teach the players how to play a role-playing game, and then also starting to understand how to function as their character classes are concerned. The other important thing to point out here is that there is, and I know it comes up in AD&D First Edition, is that it doesn't matter what gender your character is. All right, so there is no gender differences in attributes or anything, in the basic here. It really does keep it very, very basic, and it wants the dungeon master to keep what they're having to focus on and manage to be very, very basic. So you are just focusing on levels 1 through 3. Your dungeon crawling.
I love these examples here.
Yes, and that's the other thing is they have great examples for adventure hooks, and these are very small little pieces that you can throw out there and build on, right? And nothing stops you from stringing some of these together and creating a larger arching mini campaign, if you want to call it that. But the focus is on just getting the players used to playing the game and doing these little tiny adventures.
What I specifically look at in regard to this is the three of us here. We probably got, I don't know, I'm guessing close to 100 years of experience overall playing role-playing games and so forth. But for the person who's like, crap, what did I just get myself into? And I say this with a little bit of experience. My first exposure to a role-playing game before I knew what a role-playing game was, believe it or not, was actually the Star Trek role-playing game from FASA.
Really?
Now, yes, the reason I say that is because I remember my real dad getting it. I looked at it. I like Star Trek. I said, I want that game. He was drunk and he bought it. So it's a true story. So anyway, thing is it came with books and we're like, what the hell? I didn't know what to do with it. And I never understood role playing from that point forward, or at that time. It wasn't until I'd played D&D when I was 10 years old, and that's about the same time that I did the Star Trek thing. But I didn't really know what I was getting into. Once I learned how to role play, I'm like, man, I look at this right here. How to do this stuff. See, books have chapters on how to DM or GM or whatever the term that game's using. Books on, maybe a couple paragraphs on like, here's an example combat of like what people did. Linda rolls the die and she hit. Congratulations to her. This is how the game master should describe it. Blah, 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 right? But this right here is literally how you build a freaking dungeon. Here's some dungeon ideas. Have at it. Use your imagination. Remember, this is a game. Look, Heathen Dog and I have kind of said it. We definitely like the role-playing aspect of it. We have some story element gaming in us. But when I'm looking at a brand new player who might be scared to sit at the table and role play, how many times we run into that? Somebody just doesn't want to role play the table because they feel weird about it. They don't have that desire to be the character yet so much. This is great. This is absolutely great. You've got, what do we say? Again, it's just an old adage, but the 3 to 5 adventures. So we have 9 to 15 adventures that the character has just stuck in this book. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you killed the conversation. Good job.
Yeah, I do that a lot. BattleTech and Western Star Wars are my first RPGs. Played both. I'm huge. I mean, that's why my name's Max Liao, of course. But for the BattleTech side of it, but West End game Star Wars, Heathen Dog and I, we have some experience with that.
Yep, played that.
All right.
I wasn't a big fan of the West End game Star Wars.
Really? I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, I played it and it was fine. It was at the time it was the game in town for Star Wars. So if you want to play it, Star Wars, you played that. So, that was great. But I know I hate myself for saying this again, but I liked the D20 Star Wars. I do. I cry a little bit at night every time I go to sleep because of that fact, but it's true. You're a hypocrite, heathen dog. Yeah, well, sometimes everyone is.
How about this? Instead of you embarrassing yourself, let's find out more from DM Bluddworth. Actually, are we ready to skip into the next book real quickly here? Or do you want to?
Sure, I think
anything
so.
else? Okay.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered basic and then that one key point in the Dungeon Master's rule book, was the main one to make a point on, was that this is really meant to be the basic game for both the DM and the players.
Absolutely, so, and I like that separation. Now with this one, we're going to speed through this one a bit quicker, but whatever selling point, or not selling point, there are a couple points I'd like to make, but whatever points you want to make, we're still going to make. I don't think we have to stop at every page in this one.
Right. I mean, the key, and going along with that line of thinking of where does this book take the players and the DM to the next level, I think you start getting to that when you go to page 20.
Page
and
20?
It talks about adventuring.
Is that dark bordered page? Yeah, there we go. Oh, wait, that's the Dungeon Master section.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's page 20 is a little bit earlier than that.
Everyone has to stop watching now.
Yeah.
Yep. You're right, there it is. There's adventure.
Yeah.
Okay,
bottom half or top half?
Yeah. So
we'll start with the bottom.
Yeah, you're fine right there. So what the expert model does now, it takes them out of the dungeon and just doing simple dungeon crawls, and now it starts introducing the idea of adventuring in the wilderness. All right, and so that's why you see it here. It starts talking about further travels or travel in the wilderness areas, and it will start to incorporate. And you could see, where you're starting out, getting lost. The scale of the world becomes important now. Outside scale versus inside scale, which you had mentioned earlier. The difference between 120 yards and 120 feet becomes more relevant when you're starting to take the characters out
overland journeys, right?
Yeah, a dungeon, and you're not just expanding their idea of, well, now I'm leaving my town, all right, and I'm traveling to the next town over. I might be traveling 100 miles, all right, and what are all the possibilities that I can encounter in 100 miles worth of travel? All right, and excuse me. So that's not just a measurement on a map, and there's a whole concept behind. Well, the game has changed now, because now you're going to start to see, well, we need different gear, and we have to consider sleeping, we have to consider food consumption, we have to consider weather conditions and all of that. And that's what the expert book starts to build into the game system for both the DM to include and the players to deal with. So
not to disparage anybody, but if you think of it this way, and I'm sure everybody out there's already thought about before I did, but the first book, the basic book, is kind of how you treat children. Give them structure. The dungeon is a structure. I mean, think about it. You've only got really one path to go. Sure, you can choose left or right, but you're in a building. You've got your structure. You got your structure and rules. You got your structure and location. You got your structure. Everything's generally easy, we'll just say, in that regard, or easier. Now, a lot of that structure has been torn away. Now, everybody's imaginations get to soar a little bit more. The players get to think of more things they can do because they're leveling up. The game master gets to throw more ideas out there, but it was done after building that initial groundwork. Dare we say, since we're all in the military, you have your basic training. Now you're getting in your AIT.
Yeah.
But I have to bring up one troubling word.
Where is it? Where's that?
It's on the page right now. It's in quotes. Hex. Now, this means that that in some way, shape, or form, this is a grid-based deal.
Yeah, old school always came with those maps with that were hexes. And by the way, hexes are always superior to squares every single time. There's never an exception to that rule. With that said, but the overland maps are always done in hexes.
Yes.
Yeah. That I personally, I think Max Layout does as well. Hate using any kind of grid map if you don't have to. Absolutely have to.
So the hex map, to be clear, this is just for overland travel. They use the squares, the 10-foot squares for the dungeons and so forth. Actually, I think it's 5 foot back in this edition. But even then, we still did a lot. That was the whole graph paper thing. Didn't use the battle map so much. But to be clear, the hex in this is for overland travel, and it was to represent a distance or how many random encounters you might have in a day. Pretty much that's about it.
Okay, good. Because in normal combat, I hate having to use a grid map system, be it hex or square or whatever.
Agreed.
The only time that I actually use a grid map system is with large scale battles where armies are fighting armies, and I use the hex because it is the easiest way to figure out if you're harried or not. Because you have 6 points of attack on your body in the rules for AD&D. You have 6 points of attack, and guess what? A hexagram has 6 sides, and you can have one person attacking you on each side. So you can have up to 6 people attacking you at once. There you go. That's why that I only used it then for big skirmishes like that.
Well, you get into facing when you're dealing with hexes as well.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that, the roots of all Dungeons and Dragons is based in wargaming, tabletop wargaming. So it's going to make its appearance, but it doesn't make its appearance until the expert, so they're still trying to keep it very simple in the basic. You start to get some of the ideas of expert, level playing for those players, because as I said, very early on, it took my particular group of players about 30 hours to get to the expert book. And that was everybody at level 3, and a couple like the fighter was level 4 at that point. And that's when I started to shift them to the expert rules. And so, after about 30 hours, that's enough time to have spent learning the basics of the game. And now you could start introducing them to these next level of experience, which is another big seller for BECMI over using the rules cyclopedia. And I'm sure we'll get to that point, and that, comparison. So anyway, back to expert, where I was talking about food and hunting and stuff. You have it right here on the screen now.
When you think of the dungeons and so forth, it's real simple. You kind of get in that pattern, doing the same thing over and over again. You get your party order. You're checking your locks. You're searching for traps. You're so on and so forth. You've just opened up an entire new world. So now, if for whatever reason, after the 30 hours, like you said, the characters or the players were getting kind of bored, not only are you a new level, but you have all these new possibilities waiting for you. Now we have to learn if you're going to starve.
Yeah.
Do you have a tent? No. Well, it's a thunderstorm. So, there's that. Do you have a horse? You bought a horse. Yeah. Did you buy feed? Oh.
Yeah. And just the logistics involved.
Exactly.
And having to travel, much farther distances. Because it's not just the equipment requirement, and it's the planning that has to go into that overland travel. And then on top of that, you're expanding the world as a DM. Now you have to start considering, well, what's the social structure of this new town that the players have just encountered? They might have left the town that they were in for, maybe they were born there, and now they're venturing outside of their own area. And that's where we start to get into the Dungeon Master section here. And the players are now starting to think of, well, what is their character's relationship within the world? And that's where, like, demi-humans, what is their clan? Because now they might be leaving the area of their clan that they were in and potentially encountering other clans. And so what is the social aspect of the world as a whole now that they're traveling these long distances? So
now they're demi-humans. They're all paper. Who cares?
Yeah. So it also starts on that same page, or the next page, they start talking about strongholds. And even though the player characters aren't ready at that level to start developing their own strongholds,
they're going to run across some.
Yeah, they're going to run across some, and they're going to start to see, well, I want to have a stronghold one day too, and so I have to start preparing for it. And that's what the expert rules book does really well, is that it does start planting that seeds for some of those ideas. And another really important thing is that the expert rule book is one volume. So you can anticipate that both the players and the GM are looking at this, together at the same time. Whereas the basic
no. Stop reading here, mister.
Yeah. No. See, I'm going to buy the player's book and then cut out. The rest of here, you get half a book, you dirty player. Go back to your mud, you stinking player. All right,
I like the stronghold stuff. When I first perused through this,
the idea of strongholds.
No. I hate the idea of it, the way it was presented in, say, first or second edition AD&D. At 9th level, you get blah, blah, blah. I absolutely love the way it is implemented in the Year Zero engine games, whether Mutant Year Zero or Coriolis, Forbidden Lands specifically. I love the idea of characters saying, we've got the stronghold, but we've got to build it up. We've got to get people for it. And you need an adventure hook for a group. You said you wanted to get some portcullises, or you said you wanted to get some battlements. You said you need to get an alchemy room. That stuff doesn't come cheap. And where are you going to find the wizard to go in there? You might want to go adventuring for some money in order to make that happen. Great. Now I don't have to think about what quest they're going on or some world-saving event or something. So I just think it adds both for the players and for the game master. I don't know how basic does it, because I didn't spend a lot of time looking at this in the companion book, but not knowing what I know now, it's absolutely a feature that I could add in the game and saying, hey, you want this? So what's something that's kind of expensive? You want this bastion? Well, that's going to cost you 9,000. Do you have 9,000 gold? No. Better go earn it.
Yeah, again, and that's the cost of construction. That's not the time that it's going to take as well. And so that's the other factor, that these are all their long view plans. And so the players are starting to think long view. The DM is starting to think long view as well. And so that's what both are becoming experts at the game at the same time.
I didn't think of that long view. That's I like that. I didn't ever even considered that.
No. Thinking like a player is just short view. And this is what you do. You're walking around, you happen to be a 5-person group. You're all thieves. All right. You walk like, oh, how you doing? Oh, look, a stronghold. That one looks really good. Let's infiltrate that, kill everyone, and take it. Pay for it, whatever. Pay for it in blood, your blood.
Oh, wait, wow. No. This isn't basic? Holy crap. This goes back to basic. People forgot about this.
Overusing dice, yes. Yeah. Not everything requires a roll, people.
Wow, I'm not lying. I mean, I'm actually surprised to see it here. I'm not saying that I think it's a modern convention, but I usually see stuff like this in publications, like magazines and so forth, not in actual game rules. I don't remember seeing this. It might be there, but I don't remember seeing it in the advanced D&D games. Like just they're in your face for the DM for the DM. Don't roll for everything. I like that.
Well, this certainly does empower the dungeon master. All right. I.e. the reason why it's called master, it empowers them to make these decisions, and really encourages them to utilize, the rules that they want to, discard the rules that they don't, and don't leave it up to the dice rolls to make those decisions here. I know a lot of people will ask that question, when is it appropriate for the dungeon master to fudge a dice roll? I was like, I think there's times when I roll the dice just to make my players nervous. I'll roll the dice and it's for no other reason than to, well, what are you rolling about? Well, you don't need to know that right now. I'm just rolling dice.
What I've done is rolling damage. The very first time they're like, oh, we can take this guy, and I know they can. They got a really good shot, but the first time that this guy strikes the warrior, I'll roll like 8 dice for damage and go, man, that's a bad roll. 5. But they'll hear behind my DM screen, they'll heal all this clay dice, right? They're like, oh my God, I lucked out so bad. Let's think about this. Hang on. On second thought, what if I left the stove on? So I do that sometimes if they're getting cocky.
Yeah, that kind of subterfuge I use with the note passing as well. Every now and again, I'll pass a note to a character. I don't know if I ever did this with Heathen Dog.
Yeah, you did. You passed me a note one time, and that just said disregard this note.
Usually I say, this note is BS. Make a smiling face, or I'll just put something on there because then the players are like, what's happened? What's going on? I check for a secret, everything. I'm checking. Is he cursed? I'm casting detect. You see the players go nuts. Like, I don't do it all the time, but it's just one of those things. Like, if I think that they're metagaming a bit, like, okay, I'll literally pass you a note and say, this note is BS. Just cackle. So we got more about strongholds here. I already highlighted taxes earlier. Are you kidding me? You're gonna make me pay taxes? Stupid realm. I hate monarchies. Swimming. Now we got campaigns. And this is a topic I don't want to spend a lot of time on. The segment is going a little long here, but this is one of those things where I want to say that this is what created the first, schism's too strong of a word, arguments when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. You had the people who wanted to play, what I call the monster of the week, just go into the dungeons, kind of like what the first book for basic would be, versus the people like me who wanted to role play, who wanted to feel like I was part of the world, who wanted the more campaign, who wanted the epic Dragonlance type story. That's actually what they called us back then, were the dirty Dragonlance campaigners or whatever. Now it's story game versus RPG. I like campaigns. And, it's funny when I talk to certain old people, Shads are, who act like this stuff never existed. And by the way, I did a search for story on like almost all these books. And even Frank Metzner said that there's story in these games. Just saying, Shads, if you're watching.
There's a campaign just has to be more than one connected dungeon crawl. Or more than one connected event. Campaigns do not have to be a 12-month long, 15 different adventure modules all strung together.
Level 1 to 20 and
right. Yeah. Campaigns could just be that, this is a particular nemesis that you have, who is an 8th level cleric that you are trying to thwart his spreading of a new cult in the area. And you're going to have 5 different adventures that lead you towards ultimately killing off this 8th level cleric, and that's the end of the campaign. Now, your characters might have gone from level 1 when they first started learning rumors about this individual to level 5 when they could reasonably take on a level 8 cleric and his or her entourage. And now that's the end of your campaign. It took you maybe 12 gaming sessions to run that full campaign. And now you're on to the next story. Maybe you've traveled to a whole new area that you haven't been in before. You're going to do some small little dungeon crawls just to learn about that localized area now. And then you'll be presented with, 1, 2, or 3 potential new campaigns to embark upon.
Actually, that's what I this is what I usually do. They'll start off first level. They'll do their first campaign, end up, like you said, at 5th level. But then the next thing that happens to them is people start coming to them because they are now locally known.
Yeah.
Hey, just a couple of leagues that way, my cousin told me that he's being raided by orcs like on the monthly. And he's been looking for heroes to come. And you guys are legit. You guys are it. Can
Your
you
word is spread.
I mean, they'll be able to pay whatever. I'm not sure what, but they'll be able to hook you up. And then you travel to this new area, and it takes away the necessity for the player to find their own adventure. You found
or stringing them on with just one.
Yeah, but they still feel like they own it because they earned it. They earned the status that allowed them to be thought of as being good enough to handle this. It makes the players feel good. It gives them the illusion of agency, which I love.
Oh, there we go. One of the things that I wanted to say that I noticed yesterday is that this book, do you notice that the Game Master section starts on page 20, was it 2022, right?
22, yeah.
Look, you see where the little bar is over here that I'm wiggling over? Like the rest of the book is for the Game Master.
Yeah.
Well, then there's, this is an adventure. Never mind.
Yeah, except when you get to the Isle of Dread. That's fine. Well, actually, technically, that's for the Game Master as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
Most of this, the expert thing doesn't require the players to make a lot of changes, just kind of understanding the new encumbrance rules, understanding the new levels and so forth. The Game Master, on the other hand, has to understand the wilderness, the town setups, the clans, like you're saying, and so forth, and new magic items, apparently, as I'm looking right here.
Yes. And obviously the power level of the monsters that they could be facing also increases with each of the books as well. So but it is mostly rules for the dungeon master.
So like I said, I mean, I just tear out, buy 2 of these books, 2 of the expert books, tear out pages 1 through 21.
Don't ruin your book, please.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you bought 2.
That's why that's the advantage of PDFs, actually.
Yeah, and then photocopy.
Yeah.
Enough to give everyone pages 1 through 20. Like, where's the rest of the book? That's all the book you get, you dirty player. You shut your hole.
If you remember in Earthdawn, that's what I did with you guys. If you played a warrior, you got or any combat class, you got the drink, because I just said Earthdawn. But you guys got the basic rules, and the casters got the spell casting, the thread weaving, and so forth. But you got none of the combat options. Yet the fighters, sword masters, so forth got combat options and whatnot without understanding thread magic and etc. So then I couldn't have the first time ever player at the table going, "Can't you over there thread weave blah blah blah?" It's like, can't you aggressively attack, dickhead? It's like, no, you stayed within your lane. Of course, they learned it through the course of play, which I liked, but. I could see myself doing the same thing for this. Like I like when games, especially looking at expert here, separate. This is what players need. This is what game masters need. There seems to be this trend in games. Sometimes it's just because they don't want to do multiple printing runs. I get that, especially for indie developers. But the information is all mixed in. Like literally everything is for players and game masters. Very, very few of it is like, this is the game master's eyes only, because everybody's equal at the table now. Now, I'll be honest with you, one of the things that they hear me arguing about, like in Conan Exiles, as we're playing that as a computer game, is I like not knowing. I like the discovery. I like, holy crap, I just got killed by something. How the hell did he kill me? Or what's around this corner? I don't like just researching everything online. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I can do this, that, next thing. All right, we win. Let's go. We're just going to go here. We're going to do that. And so forth. Still amazing to this day. Yes, somebody, side note here, somebody made a comment this week on our YouTube channel. Like, why do you hate Earth Dawn? I don't hate Earth Dawn. I hate everything for modern TTRPGs, and we'll talk about that more in segment 2 in terms of how they change it. Earth Dawn had a jarring change to me. And yes, you could say, oh, that's a little hyperbolic, but it had a jarring change. In 4th edition, which I supported, which I gave it credit for, which I have YouTube videos on, the 3rd book came out, and he decided to change the language to be more gender inclusive.
No. Segment 2. Keep it.
I know, no, but I'm answering the Earth. I'm answering the Earth Dawn thing, and I'm not going to keep it in. So let me get it.
Keep it in. You gotta
I do not got to. I will mute you. This time I got the mute button. He thinks he's in charge of this, but he's not. He thinks he's in charge of this, but he's not. Anyway. No, the point that I was making, because I am going to finish it, is the fact that it was just that change. I love Earth Dawn. Earth Dawn is still my game of choice. It's what took me away from D&D, and I never wanted to look back. But like 5th edition for a lot of people, or WotC editions for a lot of people who like basic, it's a jarring change. If you go from basic, and we'll talk about that in segment 2, but if you go from basic to 5th edition, it's not the same game. So. Right. Anything else with regard to the expert rulebook here that we didn't cover that you think is important for people to know? I kind of scrolled through it a little bit.
Expert will take your characters up to level 14.
Yes.
All right. So now between the first 2 book sets, all right, you're going from 1 to 14. Once you start going into which we probably won't cover today because we want to move on to segment 2, is the companion will take you from 15 to 25.
Which is crazy to me. 25?
Crazy, right. So you're starting to get to the point where, and again, just in my experience, once your characters are 14 and above or 15 and above, you're starting to deal with the highest level of official game adventures that were created. All right, so you're in the Tomb of Horror realm. All right, once you get to levels, 15 and above, or Ravenloft, or any of those really well known, very powerful dungeons that you're dealing with. You're dealing with characters now that are creating their own spells, and maybe not quite in the once they get to level 18, they're archmages and they're creating their own spells. You're going to be the lords of the land if you're fighters. You're going to have that stronghold.
People are paying you tax.
Right, exactly. and you're the one hiring adventurers to go do your little errands. So it's really, I think expert is probably like the last playable as player parties are concerned, box set, and you're really running the show once you're dealing with companions, and then certainly master is like you're virtually immortals once you're doing masters. So
one of the things I noted, if you compare it to like advanced editions, how easy it is to level through these levels. If you think about it, it's just 100,000 a pop for this cleric. It's not like it keeps doubling, or 500,000. I forget what it is in like 1st and 2nd edition AD&D. It's just 100,000 a pop. So not that you're going to be leveling quickly. Don't get me wrong. It's just there's no exponential increase here.
Right, and that might also be because you're adding just another spell to a spell level that you already have. So like, as you could see, like 17, the difference between 17 and 18 is that you're just getting one additional 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th level spell
Actually, no, just a 7.
Just 1/7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just 1/7. So the power curve between 16 and 17 is actually greater than 17 to 18 because you are gaining a new spell level. All right. After that, you're just adding an additional spell at levels you've already attained. So maybe that's why it kind of tapers off as far as exponential growth.
Yep, and you got different saving throws as you go up multi-levels and so forth. I mean, this allows you, and I just wanted to put this up here because, just to show it real quickly. This allows you, again, now we're in the 3rd book. You take your character from 1st to 3rd, then from 4th to 14th, now from 15th to 25th. There's the Immortal book. And, I'm not going to show that and so forth, but you can get into godlike characters, which is a completely separate game once you start reading it. I stopped reading it because I thought it was going to confuse me for this episode today, but it is completely separate game. And yes, I even skipped the 4th book, which is, what's the 4th book? It's the Master Rules. Yeah. The black covered book.
Yes.
Which I didn't look through either. I got to be honest with you.
It really takes you into a realm where your characters are really best suited to be NPCs at those levels. They should be the rulers of countries, not adventure parties running around. They're just so powerful. I mean, to write a
so does that turn it more into a strategy game than a tactical game at this point, or is this?
I don't know, because to be honest with you, I've never had any of my characters ever be higher than 18th level. And then they retired, basically. It was like, all right, you've achieved everything that you're potentially going to do, because we weren't running campaigns as you're out there saving the world. You were just an adventurer, trying to become the guild master. That's where my character took it to. He became the Thieves Guild Master, at level 18. So never had any aspirations beyond that. And all of my other character classes, and characters, throughout all those years that I was playing, they usually died before then. So it was never a problem. My thief character was the only one that survived the Tomb of Horrors, and that's because he ran away. He was like, nah, screw that. After 3/5 of the party was dead, he was like, screw that. And he just turned around and took just a handful of some treasure and managed to escape. And it was like, well, I at least walked out of there with something to show for it, but didn't try to go beyond that point. So
yeah, there comes a point where it's like, I don't even I love the idea of leveling up my characters from first, to watch that from here, from 0 to hero concept.
Yeah.
But once you get there, like for me, I like to play wizards. At least I used to. Now I play clerics more, but I used to love to play wizards, and I loved struggling through the low levels. I loved when I got my first fireball or lightning bolt. That was awesome. And then, as you go up, and then of course, once you get that 9th level spell, whether it's time stop or whatever it happens to be, you're like, yes, I've made it. But then at that point, it's like, yeah, let me use it a couple times to say I did, to say I'm here for a reason. I can't see but I got my character to 25th level. What's the difference between that and, an 18th level? Well, I can cast my spell 4 times instead of 1 time.
Right. Yeah. The growth, the character growth is kind of more social and more cerebral, more involved with, well, how are you impacting the world now, rather than what are you doing for personal, character growth.
All right. Well, I think that was a really good discussion on basic and expert. A little under 2 hours, which, for a 5-book series, and, trying to get out what we wanted to get out on the first 2 main books, I think we explained it pretty well. Is there anything we left on the table that you don't think we got to, that you think is very important for people to know? All right.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, then let's show your website one more time, or your YouTube channel one more time, and remind everybody who's watching right now, hey, please be sure to like and share, and what's that other one? Comment. all that happy stuff that we got to do for the YouTube algorithm to make sure that people enjoy what they're watching. But in the meantime, go to Unscripted Unchained RPG Review. Let me put that chat back in there. I think that goes to everybody. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. You can take a look. He's got diverse selection. He's got some tabletop. Oh, Divinity Original Sin. Oh, this is Divinity Original Sin, not number 2. But hey, Heathen Dog, you want to play some Divinity Original Sin 2?
Nope. I'm good.
We started streaming that. We got 2 streams, and then
It's like,
we were
nope.
done. We got do you have a playlist? Your first edition series?
Yes,
There we go.
that should be there. Yes.
Yep.
So
AD&D.
all 13. All 13, and those are the books in their
Entirety.
order of being released.
Okay.
So that's in their release thing. I did Legends and Lore instead of Deities and Demigods because that's the book that I actually got until I actually found an affordable version of Deities and Demigods. And affordable meant $60, which I was lucky to get. That's the 128 page. You still can't find the 144 for less than like $130 or even more sometimes. So if you can survive without the Cthulhu mythos and the Melibone,
I can't.
Meldorne or whatever. Yeah, I see. Yeah. As somebody who played Stormbringer, the actual Chaosium game, I really want the one with the is it I forget the name. I keep wanting to say Meltorme or the Melnorme from Star Control 2, but no, Meldorne. Right. Anyway, I want that, but I couldn't pay that. I wouldn't pay that kind of price for it either. So anyway, check out his channel. And like I said, well, you're at 1.04 now. You were at 1.03 when we started today, so hopefully...
Hey, look at that. Winner.
Yeah. Hopefully some of that came from us.
100 of them came up. Yeah. And Uther, we're not done yet. We're getting into the weird stuff now.
Ravenser says GTFO.
Segment 1. We're going to segment 2. This is called The Weeds.
Well, before we go to segment 2, let's show what he's selling on DriveThruRPG. You can buy that for $1 or $2. And again, if you want to do a quick elevator pitch for each one of these.
All right, so the first one, the dollar one, is for Mifrog. It is a Halloween inspired, I guess. Although actually I wrote it before I was even thinking about Halloween, but it is an adventure using the Mifrog system. Although you can use it in other systems as well, and it starts off the player characters as 8-year-olds. And so there's a rules modification for playing very young kids, and it's just meant to introduce the world and the concept of high festivals and how to incorporate lore into your game, and to introduce them to challenges that are really focused on playing children, and then as they grow up, they can amp up their challenges until they become first level characters. So it's a combination of a session 0 and 0 level characters and an introduction to a new setting, all wrapped up into a 6-page adventure. So that's that one, and then the other adventure is for gangbusters. So you can see my range of what are my interests are kind of widespread, just like on the channel. So gangbusters, and this one is really I did mention this earlier. I did a lot of historical research to write this. So you are playing a police officer in the New York City Police Department as a 1921, 1922 motor company, which were just introduced then. So they were mostly motorcycle and also vehicle patrols that had sprouted up around the same time period. And I was so tied to writing this as a historical piece that I actually made sure to not include roads that didn't exist at the time.
Oh, wow.
So when you're traveling up to the lower portions of what it would be called at that time upstate New York, your only path was Route 22. And it took you as far as that road actually took you in the story. So I really did try to include as much historical context to the adventure. And I think that you'd really love, going through the multiple paths, because you do have multiple paths in this as well, and a progressive, not politically progressive, a progressive outcome based on your investigation, your evidence collection, and basically the luck of your dice rolls along will actually give you additional bonuses to to bringing the case to either justice, whatever you want to call that, or to actually end up with a resolution, because you could have different outcomes. And this was a gaming convention tested adventure. So I went through at least 4 gaming conventions with this, and 2 dramatically different outcomes in 2 cases, and then to some kind of in the middle range. So it's a fun adventure to run, and it's apparently a fun one to play as well. So
Gangbusters, is that is that open source at all, or?
Yes, that's based on TSR's Gangbusters, but it's a basic edition of it. So it kind of simplified the official TSR rules of it, and it's obviously using OGL. And that's a game system that's put out by Mark A. Hunt. So he is the one that came up with the rules for it, and then I just, with his permission, wrote an adventure for it.
Cool.